Chapter 7. The Night the Roof Blew Off. We are used to sudden storms up here on the first range of the Himalayas. The old building in which we live has, for more than 100 years, received the full force of the wind as it sweeps across the hills from the east. We'd lived in the building for more than 10 years without a disaster. It had even taken the shock of a severe earthquake. As my granddaughter Dolly said, "It's difficult to tell the new cracks from the old." It's a 2-story building, and I live on the upper floor with my family, my 3 grandchildren, and their parents. The roof is made of corrugated tin sheets, the ceiling of wooden boards. That's the traditional Mussoorie roof. Looking back at the experience, it was the sort of thing that should have happened in a James Thurber story, like the dam that burst or the ghost who got in. But I wasn't thinking of Thurber at the time, although a few of his books were among the many I was trying to save from the icy rain pouring into my bedroom. Our roof had held fast in many a storm, but the wind that night was really fierce. It came rushing at us with a high-pitched, airy wail. The old roof groaned and protested. It took a battering for several hours while the rain lashed against the windows and the lights kept coming and going. There was no question of sleeping, but we remained in bed for warmth and comfort. The fire had long since gone out, as the chimney had collapsed, bringing down a shower of sooty rainwater. After about 4 hours of buffeting, the roof could take it no longer. My bedroom faces east, so my portion of the roof was the first to go. The wind got under it and kept pushing until with a ripping, groaning sound, the metal sheets shifted and slid off the rafters, some of them dropping with claps like thunder onto the road below. So that's it, I thought. Nothing worse can happen. As long as the ceiling stays on, I'm not getting out of bed. We'll collect our roof in the morning. Icy water splashing down on my face made me change my mind in a hurry. Leaping from the bed, I found that much of the ceiling had gone too. Water was pouring on my open typewriter as well as on the bedside radio and bed cover. Picking up my precious typewriter, my companion for 40 years, I stumbled into the front sitting room and library only to find a similar situation there. Water was pouring through the slats of the wooden ceiling, raining down on the open bookshelves. By now, I had been joined by the children, who had come to my rescue. Their section of the roof hadn't gone as yet. Their parents were struggling to close a window against the driving rain.
"Save the books!"
shouted Dolly, the youngest. That became our rallying cry for the next hour or two. Dolly and her brother Mukesh picked up armfuls of books and carried them into their room, but the floor was awash, so the books had to be piled on their beds. Dolly was helping me gather some of my papers when a large field rat jumped onto the desk in front of her. Dolly squealed and ran for the door.
"It's all right,"
said Mukesh, whose love of animals extends even to field rats.
"It's only sheltering from the storm."
Big brother Rakesh whistled for our dog, Tony, but Tony wasn't interested in rats just then. He had taken shelter in the kitchen, the only dry spot in the house. 2 rooms were now practically roofless, and we could see the sky lit up by flashes of lightning. There were fireworks indoors too, as water spluttered and crackled along a damaged wire. Then the lights went out altogether. Rakesh, at his best in an emergency, had already lit 2 kerosene lamps. And by their light, we continued to transfer books, papers, and clothes to the children's room. We noticed that the water on the floor was beginning to subside a little. "Where is it going?" asked Dolly.
Through the floor.
Said Mukesh.
Down to flat below.
Cries of concern from our downstairs neighbors told us that they were having their share of the flood. Our feet were freezing because there hadn't been time to put on proper footwear. And besides, shoes and slippers were awash by now. All chairs and tables were piled high with books. I hadn't realized the extent of my library until that night. The available beds were pushed into the driest corner of the children's room, and there, huddled in blankets and quilts, we spent the remaining hours of the night while the storm continued. Towards morning, the wind fell, and it began to snow. Through the door to the sitting room, I could see snowflakes drifting through the gaps in the ceiling, settling on picture frames. Ordinary things like a glue bottle and a small clock took on a certain beauty when covered with the soft snow. Most of us dozed off. When dawn came, we found the window panes encrusted with snow and icicles. The rising sun struck through the gaps in the ceiling and turned everything golden. Snow crystals glistened on the empty bookshelves, but the books had been saved. Rakesh went out to find a carpenter and tinsmith, while the rest of us started putting things in the sun to dry. By evening, we'd put much of the roof back on. It's a much improved roof now, and we look forward to the next storm with confidence.